Good afternoon. I know there seems to be a lull here, so we hope the digital experience will engage us and draw us into the art that we've seen at BIL. Um, like the introducer said, the digital has the scope to immerse you and draw you in, as well as soothe you and connect you. And what struck me yesterday when I was looking at all the works, they span a very variety of digital experiences using digital tools, generative art, video art, photography, animation, so the whole range. So I'm sure a lot of you will also have questions about this because I think it kind of sparks a bit of curiosity about how these works were created as well. All of these works, including Pooja, who's not here today, they are located in the arrival corridor. And what also struck me was the sequence in which they're laid out. At once, there's Namrata's that kind of soothes and connects to you, and then there's Tanya's work that kind of grounds you to perhaps what reality you might find yourself in. And then there's Sarvesh, and actually there's Pooja's work that kind of is a bit playful about, it's a work called Guess Where I Am, and playful and draws you into Karnataka. And then there's, of course, Sarvesh and Subodh's work that grounds you to the people, the culture, the histories of the city and the state. So without further ado, I'll invite each of the artists to share a little bit more about their work. So first we'll start with Tanya, whose work is called That Which Encircles Us. Tanya is a mixed media artist and uses photography and everyday objects in her work. So Tanya, over to you.
Hi, everyone. So as she said, I'm Tanya Mehta, and I call myself a new media artist. And basically, that means I use varied forms of digital media to create my work. In this particular work, you will have photography, you have videography, you have animation, it has technology. And this is a sketch that's up just now, but what the final work does is it actually interacts and changes with the weather outside. So when it is sunny, the artwork is sunny. When it rains, the artwork rains. This gives you a tether and connection to Bangalore. The concept behind this work, it's called That Which Encircles Us. And Praryavan, which translates today into environment, basically in the ancient texts translated to That Which Encircles Us. And I found that so interesting because it tethers us, the people, into the environment. We are not separate from it. And I think that is something that's lacking today with how we're treating our planet. So again, it is broken up into two, seasons and nature. And this artwork depicts both of them. It changes with seasons and nature. And seasons and nature have always been muses. They have been inspirations of wonder, love, awe, and I think that's what my artwork deals with. So in the artwork, I have everything has been shot in and around Bangalore. Vijayanagar temple pillars, which by the way I studied how they were painted in ancient times, and I tried to bring some of that color back. And Dharwar Kraton boulders, which it's actually a very, very unique geographical phenomenon that we have here in Bangalore. It's 2.5 to 3.6 billion years old, one of the few we have around the world. And maybe while we drive past these boulders, we don't give them a second look, but really they are filled with history. And so basically the bedrock of Bangalore then gives way to this temple of the heavens. And as it changes with nature, it is here to root you.
Thank you, Tanya. And I hope some of you have experienced this. And because it's in arrival, I would encourage you to pause as you exit your little terminal and going through to baggage, because I think all the artworks are worth, there's moments to contemplate, moments to engage with. The next I'd like to invite Namrata Arjun to share their work. Namrata's practice is concerned with neuroqueer perspectives, engaging in non-linear temporalities and pushing back against inherited disappearances. And their work is called Still Water, Troubled Water, and you can see it here. So Namrata?
Thanks for that introduction, Meghna. I think this shot here is an in-process shot, and the work has actually changed considerably by the time it was installed. And this was in part due to Yamini's suggestion, and she was like, we'll do the monitor in a vertical rather than a horizontal manner, which was a very interesting provocation. I have a painting practice, and I don't really work in video typically, so this was very new for me. And it was the open call, actually, which was about Navarasas. And at that point, I was on a residency at Adi Shakti, which is near Auroville. And I was studying Abhinav Gupta's philosophy, and then the idea of the Navarasa as not a monolithic concept, but the idea that centuries of debate went into going from 8 rasas, which are mentioned in Bharata's Natya Shastra, to the 9th, Shanta. So there's a lot of scholarly debate that went into kind of arriving at this idea of Navarasa, and I wanted to play with the idea that is an emotion only valid or legitimate if it's, text, what is the relationship with text, what is the relationship of emotions and words and articulation. And so I started to play with ink and just making these shots of putting ink in water and like disturbing the water and keeping it still, and there's this range of forms that kind of became apparent, and I just started to continue to work with that to make this video work. And another thing for me with this is that the airport is also a space that's rich with information. There's a lot of information, and that tends to kind of direct your body in particular ways. So I wanted a work that carries some sense of history in the text, which accompanies it, and conceptually, but visually, I really wanted it to be as open as possible. So that's really the attempt with this work. And I'll kind of leave it at that. And I wish there was a video, but I'll encourage everyone to see the video version as well. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, we wish there were videos of each of their work, but then we'll just have to travel through T2. I'd like to invite Sarvesh Shah, who describes himself as a human-computer interaction researcher, new media storyteller, creative technologist, and futurist. And his work is called Trails of Yakshagana. So over to you, Sarvesh.
Yeah, hi guys. My name is Sarvesh, and throughout this morning we have heard of how Navarasa is something which you can experience in a lot of ways, right? In a lot of forms of art. It can be in food, it can be in puppetry. And here the sort of art medium which I thought would reflect my interpretation was dance. And this is the indigenous theatre form of art form of Karnataka, which is Yakshagana. I think it is popularized by this movie Kantara, where you have seen Bhutkala, right? And this sort of takes inspiration from that as well. And the idea here is that when you experience a dance form, a dance is sort of like a sculpture in motion. It's a sculpture in flux, right? And it's not just the artist's position which gives a meaning, but it's something which they leave behind. It's also something which adds meaning to the art. And that is the reason why this artwork is called Trails of Yakshagana, because it sort of plays with delayed motion of the art form, the dance, and it uses colors which were inspired by K.K. Hebba's painting, because he was himself a Yakshagana artist and a painter, and he closely demonstrated a lot of the life of a Yakshagana artist, and that is what we tried to showcase here. So, yeah, I'll leave that.
We'll come back to ask them more details about their process and the technology involved in their artwork. But we'll go over to Subodh, who, as many of you know, by training is a physician, but his art practice includes installations, sculptures, multimedia work, performance, paintings, and drawing, and he's the founder of the Museum of Goa. So, Subodh, if you could tell us a little bit about your artwork, Navrasa.
Okay, well, to put in Tanya's terminology, I am the oldest new media artist. And also, actually, I am a new media artist and an old media artist, because I work in many different media. Well, I was originally a medical doctor. That gives me a very interesting access to science, because I was a man of science. I gave up my medical practice. That's because most of my patients suddenly became tourists, and British tourists, and the only disease they were suffering from was loose motions. And the idea of devoting my life to British loose motions was not palatable. I thought India has taken I thought India has taken enough bullshit from the British and I didn't want to take any more. So I decided to become an artist and now a new media artist. I right now working with something which I can describe as installation performance. I had a broadcast on my Instagram, said I want to work with 100 women in saris, and those who would like to register, please come register, a Google form, and come at this spot on the Goa's beach at this time. And we started getting registrations. There were 100, there were 200, then I had to stop. That's because if I had announced that we wanted men in red shirt, come at this time, not one single person would come, even if I had said beer free afterwards. But then women have this innate need to show themselves off in lovely sari. And today, I'm so much impressed, I think I would request Yamini that we should have a sari parade here. Because there are so many beautiful saris and so many beautiful women. So we had more than 100 women who registered. And I'm lucky to have a girl working as a graphic designer in my studio. And she is a Bharatanatyam dancer. And she helped me choreograph it. Of course, it was a very simple movement and the age was no bar. So we had 100 women who performed, and I really wish that I had this power of getting 100 women when I was much younger. Well, so this is the work, but this is part of this is because Yamini requested me that, okay, we should do something connected with Navarasas, and I thought a dance form is all rasas. So that's why for the first time I worked with women. Otherwise, my art practice as a performance installation artist is with fishermen. And I'm also working on a full-fledged 1-hour documentary where I'm calling it Fishermen and the Ocean. And in this series of work, I tried to show the inseparability of the life of the fisherman and the ocean. Because the life of the fisherman is completely marinated in the ocean, inseparable from the ocean. And that's the idea which I tried to show. And that will be a 1-hour full-fledged documentary, which will be happening soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Actually, that you kind of addressed what I wanted to ask, because I've seen your, this particular piece connects to the ocean. Part of it connects to the ocean, and this vision, this visual of women on the ocean and the soothing, the waves coming in. And I've always seen your work with men, so I was very intrigued on how, in this piece, you invited women. Was there any particular reason and reasoning for that, or how did you engage with that?
That's because I thought I worked so much with men, why not work with women, and that's the only reason. But I work with a lot of other digital mediums too, not just this. I have at least 10 projects in the pipeline now connected with digital media. Actually, in my studio, I have a full-fledged digital department. I have an electronic engineer working with me, I have a mechanical engineer, so we work a lot with new media.
Thank you. And also what is interesting is that also I think you've worked with the Haki Piki community, and there's also the harking back to the land, the green and the water of the state that comes out in Subodh's work. So thank you for that. Tanya, going over to you, your work, it's extremely intriguing because it changes, it's connected to an app, a weather app, and it kind of, as the weather changes outside in the city, so also it mirrors in your artwork. So if you could tell us, and I know there's a lot of intricacies that goes on behind your artwork, so if you could tell us about the layers and the engagement that's involved in creating this piece.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So as I mentioned before, this artwork has photography, video, and animation. And it's got hundreds and thousands of layers that have been put together individually. Just one temple pillar plus all the painting would be about 50. So you can imagine what then goes into the intricacies of the clouds, etc. In order to connect it, but I think the biggest challenge here was it's being done for the airport. And so then to have an artwork that goes online with airport security, well, that was a challenge. And I have to say, Yamini and Bhargavi helped me tremendously. A lot of praise for them today, but with a lot of cause. And I think there were some challenges also in the making, because in the live one, which is a video, there's a sari which is continuously flying. And we needed to shoot it on the right day with wind, with the right light, because that's the best way to do it. And there were so many things that could go against you. It could rain, or there could be no wind, and you'd assemble this whole team of 10 people to try and get this one small element. And perhaps that wouldn't have worked. So it is challenging. As you said, there are a lot of intricacies. also create the smooth loop, without having to load too much onto the airport server. But these are all boring, geeky things, I would say. I think the experience of the artwork is the important bit of it.
No, but I think while it's geeky and the intricacies thing, and I think Sarvesh said the same thing when I was asking him about the details of creating this trails. But I think it's very intriguing because I think the medium is different and how the layering that goes on behind these pieces, and then what we as an audience experience is completely different. We don't even realize the layers that are there behind each of these pieces. And what is interesting about all four of the artworks is you kind of encounter them just opposed to the sunken garden that you see on your right side. So all your artworks draw us into a certain kind of reality and a certain kind of space, but at the same time we are connected to the outer environments in a little way through the light and the green that's coming in from the sunken garden. So it's a kind of an interesting location again. So Sarvesh, coming to you, I mean, you've already spoken about your engagement with Yakshagana artists and Heber's work to create this piece. But since we don't have we just have the image here, there's a beautiful performative element in your piece because we are drawn into the movement of the Yakshagana artists. We are drawn into the emotions of the Yakshagana artists in your piece. So if you could tell us a little bit about how you went about creating that and your motivation in a sense.
Well, I thought of the Navarasas which are there, and when we are talking about this Yamini and us, we decided that it's not possible for an artwork to have just one rasa in silo. It usually is sort of like an equalizer of a lot of rasas. Some of them have hasya rasa, which is predominant, and other. In this case, what we tried to do was to evoke a Shanta rasa in beginning, go to Adbhut rasa, and then come back to Shanta rasa and play this thing in loop. So that was the idea, the conceptual idea behind this thing, and that is how we treated it. The motions, the artist motion in the beginning is slow and steady, and slowly they pick up the tempo, and then they fade again. And that is how we end the video and then restart this thing again. So it's a 2-minute clip which runs.
Which I'm sure took much longer.
Yeah, I mean.
Namrata, coming to you, we spoke about earlier that a lot of your artwork in earlier art pieces have been, and you mentioned it as well, in painting and in multimedia work, and this was one of the first ones you were engaging with video. So how did you come to this idea of creating this sense of restlessness and shanta, as you say, as you shared earlier, and depicting it with this idea of making the ink the protagonist?
Okay, so I think the whole idea started with getting into the text of how in Bharata's conception of the Natya Shastra, there's this focus on the production of the rasa, or like the emphasis on the actor or the dramatist or the dancer. And so when you're looking at it from a producer's or an artist's perspective, there's this idea of, okay, you can use these materials, these colors, and these forms to evoke certain rasas. But how do you produce Shanta? You can't really talk about it from the perspective of the maker or the artist. And so Abhinav Gupta does like a whole perspective shift and starts talking about the receiver and how it's the state of the receiver or the person that's viewing or engaging with the work that actually can open up a space for tranquility or shanta. And so the idea was to use ink and water very simply to talk about still water as being a space where, when the water is still. And this is not with the assumption that your state of mind is always in your control or whatever. This is not spiritual bypassing, but I'm just looking at it from like the technical perspective of how shifting the emphasis to the viewer actually opened up space for creating a whole other rasa or including Shanta rasa. And there's like I said, centuries of debate between Bharata's Natya Shastra and Abhinav Gupta's Navrasa. So that whole conceptual and philosophical trajectory was my raw material, and I was just thinking about ink and water as a way to translate that whole debate. And it really just came to this very simple form of shooting, with distressed or troubled water and very still water to try and give a visual form to that kind of philosophical tradition and trajectory that the text actually, or the idea of Navrasa has traveled. Yeah.
Thanks, Namrata. So both coming to you, you very interestingly said that you too were new to video art and experimentation in this sphere. So, and if you could share a little bit more about how you've been engaging with these experiments.
Well, I will give you examples of some of my other works. On this stage, I'm speaking for the second time. I think 2 years ago, I spoke here on the 2nd October on Mahatma Gandhi. I'm a student of Gandhi. And I showed my work here in Bangalore, actually, to Rajmohan Gandhi, who is Gandhi's grandson. And he liked my work, and he connected me with all the Gandhi institutions in the country. And I went to Delhi, to the National Museum, the Gandhi Museum. The director knew that I was an ex-doctor, so he just pointed to a chair, and I sat down. He opened a cupboard and gave me a file. That was the original medical file of Mahatma Gandhi. And it had a lot of blood reports, urine reports. It had letters written by the doctors to Nehru and Patel about how to look after Gandhi. And it had 3 electric cardiograms. So I photographed all this, and I started thinking, what do I do with these electric cardiograms? An idea came to me. Any graph can be converted into sound. And if Gandhi's cardiogram is converted into sound, you get Gandhi's heart sounds. That's precisely what I did. And people who gathered here that day heard Gandhi's heart sounds, which I drew from Gandhi's cardiogram. So these are the kind of projects I do. Yeah, so this is sort of using, many times in the digital media, I'm not commenting on my fellow artists, but in general, I'm commenting. Many times people use digital media just for the sake of using. For example, the Prime Minister's office created an exhibition on Gandhi and on Patel. What happened there? You go there, you press a button, a garland comes into Patel's neck. Now, this is misuse of digital media. So, digital media has to be harnessed thoughtfully, intelligently to say something, not just for the sake of it. So it's like AI. It's a great boon, and it can also become, it can create bad art. So this can also happen. Thank you.
But that's a great segue to my next question, which is to do with the medium. And I'll start with Sarvesh, because Sarvesh calls himself a futurist. So in terms of AI and also in terms of digital art and where we're going, I would just love for each of you to speak to where you see this kind of art going and the potential or challenges of it.
I'll just say that it's in my arrogance that I call myself these things. It's something which, these titles are something which you get bestowed upon. But okay, I'll answer the question of how we see digital art in the future. I think initially digital art was something which you would view as a photograph or as a movie. Slowly and slowly it started becoming a little bit more responsive, where you had some data or some algorithm which it changed based on some data. It became interactive, where you had some sensors which would read a person's input and change accordingly. And I think from interaction we are going into the idea of even consumption, because I have in this hall a fellow senior of mine who has worked on digital art, and he sort of made different patterns of jalebi using digital art, right? Using data. And those jalebis, the people who were interacting with this could eat that thing. So you could eat your data, right? And that is the next thing which I think can happen. People owning the data, people interacting and consuming the data, is something which we might see in the future. Maybe.
NFTs are in a way.
Yeah, NFTs in a way are something like that. You can own them. I think they have not reached the potential that they can. Something which I'm hopeful about. Let's see.
Tanya, Tanya. Yeah.
So I think this debate about digital art, where it's going, is it good, is it not? It's a debate we've had before a century ago when photography came into being. And it's a debate we've had before that. And I think every medium, no matter what it is, and there will be more as we go forward, because we are just racing along just now, aren't we? Every medium will have its place. And every medium just like photography or painting, will have good artists and bad artists, artists who want to express something genuine, artists who are just creating for the fun of it and have no intention to express. And I think why digital art had this question is tagged to it so much is because of social media, of the amount of content we consume, and because we are just bombarded with so much. But again, perhaps I think we will find our footing like we always have throughout the centuries. It's just a matter of time, and things will evolve as they always do.
Thanks, Tanya.
Yeah, just jumping off of that, I feel like the screen is really seen as something that demands a lot from you. It's lit from within. It doesn't need an external light source. There's a different temporality in operation with it. And I just see, it isn't the technology, but what you can do with it. So in this video, it's almost like a tool for like emotional regulation or creating a certain meditative space. And I kind of feel like that's possible even within the digital medium. It's about kind of subverting the way it is used traditionally and trying to alter the temporality at which it operates, like use it to kind of engage someone's attention span in a different way. All of that is possible. It's just because of certain assumptions that the digital comes with that you kind of bypass those possibilities. And so I just think that there's an opportunity to use the medium in a different way, actually keep in dialogue with other mediums. And this is why I go back to painting, because it really does inform my practice. And there's a sense of being able to borrow from and engage with it in a very different way, or at least that's what I've tried to do with this work, and that's where I see potential.
Thank you. Subodh, would you like to add? But we started from you, yeah.
Yeah, well, I will like to make a little comment on artificial intelligence and art, which is created with artificial intelligence. Just 2 weeks ago, I was speaking at an education seminar in Jaipur, and my topic, it was a seminar on artificial intelligence and humanities, and art falls into humanities, and my topic I chose was natural stupidity and artificial intelligence. That is because what I feel is, you cannot, when artificial intelligence should be used as one of the tools. It cannot create art, because one of the most important thing which is innate for any creativity is intuition. Because we have intelligence, we have instincts, and when intelligence and instincts go through hard work and concentration and passion, because of intuition, art is created. So it's not just my wisdom. Albert Einstein said whatever his formulas he discovered were essentially because of intuition. And artificial intelligence can never give you that intuition. It can never have that feeling. And so I think using technology, using all kind of technology is very good, but one has to remember that they are just tools and they are not art. For example, if you know grammar very well, you don't become a writer. You need something else.
Thank you. And and it's very true. I mean, all of their works, in the sense, the debate between tool and generative art is interesting in itself. But there's also value in data then creating jalebis, or data, mapping data in a way that can be artistically interpreted as well. So having said that, I think I'll bring this session to a close. The artists are here this whole evening. Many of you have engaged with their work. I'm sure you have questions, so please do feel free to reach out to them and engage with them. And do stop and engage with the work if you are in T2 as well, because that sense of wonder that we're talking about in the rasas, I think it's there in each of their work. While each of them deal with a particular rasa and are attempting to deal with all of them, wonder is something that really draws you into their work. So thank you.